and welcome to Newsmaker Live. I want to thank you for joining us for this program this evening. I also want to thank Jerry George for holding on for me for the past 2 weeks. I was out on some business, so he graciously decided to fill in, and I'm sure that he filled in very well. This evening, two very important events happening this weekend, or starting this weekend rather. One, the National Telethon, 10 years. Can you imagine that the National Telethon is 10 years running now? And also St. Lucia Jazz 2012, 21st year. But what can we say about St. Lucia Jazz? Is it an older festival that is not growing, or is it a growing festival that is getting old? We'll discuss that later on in the program. But first, I'd like to introduce to you the Executive Director of the National Community Foundation, Juliana Alfred, and she's here to talk about the National Telethon. Welcome, Juliana. It's nice to have you.
Thank you very much, Clinton. It is indeed wonderful to be here.
It's always nice to have someone who is prettier than you on your set. So, I mean, yeah, very, very, very pleasant set this evening. Not to say that other sets have not been pleasant, but yes, it's very nice to have her. NCF 10 years and running, and yes, going out trying to raise funds for the less fortunate. Tell us first about the history of the NCF, how the NCF started, and how you have grown from 2002 up till 2012.
Okay, well, the National Community Foundation was conceptualized somewhere around 2001, thereabout. It was passed through an act of parliament in August, thereabout 2002. Then, under the directorship of Ms. Emma Hippolyte, now Minister of Commerce, basically what was going on at the time was that the NIC was inundated with requests for medical support, educational support, but it wasn't their mandate to be able to provide that service. And so they conceptualized the NCF to do precisely that. And that is what the NCF has been mandated to do from 2002, to provide that kind of social support in areas such as education and healthcare and other kinds of projects working with vulnerable groups in our society. And we've been doing it for 10 years. With the help of the corporate community and many individuals in St. Lucia.
How difficult is it to manage the NCF? I know that you have, well, the NIC back then was inundated with requests.
Right.
So now all that has fallen onto the NCF.
It is quite a challenge, particularly when you look at the skeleton staff that we have in terms as an NGO, as an organization. It is a challenge, but we have been blessed with some really excellent volunteers, whether it be at a board level or at the various committees that manage our projects. We get a lot of support from them, and so it makes it a lot easier to be able to execute the work. I think the greater challenge for NCF is the issue of funding. There is never enough funds to meet the demands that are placed on the organization. Particularly, we've noticed in the last 3 or so years with the economic recession, a lot of people being laid off. A lot more persons were coming in for support, whether it be to get their children to school or to just pay basic health care. So the demands really, really grew in the last 3 years. And it has been a challenge for us in terms of being able to meet the numbers that are coming into the organization for support. So funding continues to be our challenge. And I'm hoping in the next 10 years it won't be, but that's how it is currently. But we have still been able to touch the lives of over 10,000 individuals directly.
That's amazing.
Oh, yes. That's
amazing. Now, the NCF 10 years old, and you saying funding is a challenge. How do you get your funding? We know about the telethon that happens every year, that one Sunday in every year. But how else do you get funding? Okay,
so we have covenants with a number of corporate donors. They make these annual commitments to the organization. We also have a number of individuals who on a monthly basis would make a salary deduction to the community foundation. They would identify where they would want their resources to go. And what's important to point out is that all of it is tax deductible. So these persons make these contributions. We also have other individuals and families that have established donor advised funds. So they would establish a fund dealing, for example, to deal with issues of education. We have a number of these funds established. Digicel last year, after the passage of Tomas, for example, established a Digicel Disaster Relief Fund to provide support to persons affected by a disaster. So it's been a combination of individuals and corporate donors sustaining the NCF over the last few years. Since I've been there, we've also tried to get some